Ms. Wendy Hogan, the Customer Experience and Marketing Strategy Director of Oracle in the APAC region. Please give her a big round of applause. Thank you, Wendy. And next, we'd also like to invite Mr. Assem Khalaili, the Executive Vice President of the Middle East of Siemens LLC. Thank you, Mr. Khalaili. And we'd also like to invite Mrs. Lindsay Degouve de Nuncques, the head of ACCA of the Middle East. Please give her a big round of applause too. Thank you, our dear speakers. We're going to talk about the digital future. And of course, we'd also like to invite to the stage our moderator, Mr. Badar Khushnood, the partner of Bramerz and a member of managing company of Pasha. Please give him a big round of applause. Yes, Badar, the floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum ji. I know it's post-lunch, not an easy time, and before tea, and before coffee. So even the panelists, I know they have had good lunch, so because I bugged all of them during the lunch time. So thank you so much. This panel discussion, and thank you for inviting all of us. I was just struggling to figure out the last names, but thank you so much. My focus, and I'll, as a moderator, I'll just have some house rules so that we can have a healthy conversation between you guys and them right here on the stage. I'll just seed some content as the only Pakistani probably on the panel, and I'll let you guys then drive the conversation. So please wake up and probably get ready for your questions, because I've already asked all the panelists to otherwise ask you questions. So I think it would be of interest to all of us. So I think I'll take the conversation from a digital future into a little bit of digital transformation angle. And coming from a background with Google, Twitter, and Facebook, the first time I went to Google after being hired in Pakistan as their first person on ground, I was introduced to this guy, and they told me that he is one of the best engineers, and he has recently joined a few months back. So I asked him what has he studied, and he told me he has a master's degree in philosophy or political science, something like that. I said, that's great. And then I said, what were you doing before this? He said, I was a chef at an Italian restaurant. I was like, so either I'm not getting it or I was being introduced wrongly to you. He said, no, I went to the school. So this is something very interesting. And I think I'll just make my point right after this. He said, I went to the school not to learn the subject, but to learn how to learn a new thing every time. And I think that is something which is very much lacking, especially in the local businesses here in Pakistan. We really don't want to unlearn and relearn. We just don't want to get into that iteration, which is now very much needed for any kind of transformation, especially digital. And of course, we'll make mistakes during that process. So I'll let the honorable panelists to introduce themselves. The house rule is very simple. Nothing longer than 30 seconds. Either the question, the panelists would have 60 seconds to respond to. But let's just keep those house rules. I hope you guys are okay with that. The introduction can be longer, of course. Feel free to introduce yourselves. And you guys have my talk or my part of questions would be from two angles, both from your internal organizational perspective and your understanding and take on the Pakistani businesses as well. So both of those angles, but please introduce yourselves, and then we can probably get into a conversation. So guys, please make up all your questions.
Okay, so I have the mic, so I'll start. So as mentioned, I'm Lindsay Degouve de Nuncques, and I'm head of ACCA for the Middle East. And ACCA is a professional accountancy body that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We have a very strong presence here in Pakistan. And when I think about digital transformation in the context of ACCA, it leads me automatically into education. And I have thoroughly enjoyed all of the sessions that I've heard today. And the theme of education has come up. It's come up in terms of what should we be teaching the next generation of the Pakistani youth in terms of being able to capitalize on digital and the world and where it's going. We've also talked a little bit about who we should be teaching, and there were some great references to about more inclusion. But how we should be teaching, I don't think we've actually talked about. And for me, that's the big digital transformation and something that we as an organisation are very focused upon. So the days of making someone learn something and then go and sit and write for 3 hours with a paper, a pen and a calculator have to go in a digital age. Why are we examining in a way that doesn't reflect the real life work environment? And we need to make people work ready for a digital and a digitally transformed environment. So I think that's one of the key things as a starting point, that we really do need to understand how we can empower that new way of learning. And there's a lot there about then accepting the validity of that way of learning. And I think that's been a challenge in this region, because there is elements of trust about, are these real qualifications if they're done online? How do we make sure that they are valid? How do we make sure they're rigorous? Is digital assessment of the same level as actually the traditional models? And so we've got to change the mindset and the cultural mindset. I think I'll probably pause for there because I probably hit my 60 seconds, and maybe we can come back to some of the elements around that too.
Yep. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session and for this exciting event. Well, my name is Assem Khalaili. In what I do, I am in Siemens, responsible for Middle East and North Africa for business development strategy, and I do the digitalization transformation. I drive also globally a couple of initiatives for Siemens regarding technology transformation and business modeling. This is where my connection to this digitalization topic become an interest and a hobby. I do quite a lot of public speaking, so in the last 6 months I think I spoke in 4 continents about the topic, and in every continent like 2-3 times.
We can go back and take our seats.
No, but I can tell you different prospects, at least, that some of the problems are not specific in Pakistan. And here I will move now to my relation to Pakistan, how I see it. Personally, I'm responsible for the business in Pakistan since 2011. So I have seen quite a good time frame for what have been discussed today. Personally, I have also, as a human, a lot of emotional relation to Pakistan. I'm from Middle East, I'm Palestinian. So Pakistan was always for us a big thing, and since my childhood, so it was never easy to see Pakistan weak. It was always the symbol of a strong country and a good reference for us. So I always believed in Pakistan. So last couple of years we have seen the flip-flop of going down, up, but as a person I was always a believer. I am happy to be here today and to listen what I see, but I believe we have still a lot of disruptive change to happen. And if I will make one advice, I know most of the policy makers has left the room, but if I will make one advice, I will say split policy making from business. That's an advice to do it if you want to accelerate. So keep the policy in government, make the business outside the government, and that can accelerate it. Yeah, that's an advice for Pakistan. On the business and disruption equal to uncertainty. But let's agree one thing I learned in chemics, the best chemical reaction happened when you create uncertain set conditions for the chemical components, but the result is the best. And this is normally how you get the high value components. So the more the uncertainty we live, the better the result can be. But what is differentiating there is a mindset. And this is what we learn, and we will talk later about how we learn it in Siemens, being a big company, more than 350,000 employees, 101 countries, that leadership is an issue. Because technology is there. Technology is never a challenge. The mindset of people, the mindset of leadership, flexibility of system, ability to change a business model will be the challenges. And I personally shifted my focus since 3 years from the technology more to the business model and the change management required to acknowledge the digitization and make it an opportunity and create a value, that the value create an impact that people become a believers, because people will believe when they see a value. And that is the time where you can change nations, companies, people, when they see the impact of this value on their own life. We'll talk about this in my next sessions, but for the moment, I'll stop here.
Thank you so much. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here, my first trip to Pakistan. It has been an enlightening couple of days, and I too have enjoyed all of the sessions this morning. So I joined Oracle about 18 months ago, part of Oracle's transformation to introduce cognitive diversity into the organization and not continue to attract people from tech. As we help our customers think about how they transform to connect to their customers in a different way. And I think we all know that as customers and as individuals, our expectations have changed dramatically as a result of the way we experience our access to products and services and experiences in a digital economy. And what I love about emerging markets and markets where we're accelerating towards digital economies is the opportunity for brands in those markets to go with the customer or even get ahead of the customer as their expectations change. And so here in a market like Pakistan, where the broadband accessibility and beyond the urban consumer, there's a real opportunity to be there and coach and drive your customer expectations and how you deliver experiences and differentiate and delight your customers is a real opportunity. And I think it's exciting to watch that and be part of that and help support and drive that. From a perspective of what it takes, I agree in terms of it's about mindset and process and discipline as much as anything else, because you can do anything with technology, but if you don't understand from the CEO down what you need to do in terms of changing KPIs, in terms of education and enablement, reskilling of your staff, investing in different kinds of tool sets, then you won't be able to really deliver successful business transformation. And it really is about business transformation in a digital world. It's not about digital transformation, and I very much agree with some of the speakers that already spoke to that earlier today.
Perfect. So I'll share one thing which I noticed generally in Pakistani companies, especially. So I know you guys come from large organizations, but coming from Pakistan perspective, we have a huge kind of a torso within the pyramid, not just the top of the pyramid. And that is like 2 million plus SMEs exist in Pakistan. And that's a huge opportunity where this transformation, whether it's mindset or processes, all of this has to follow. The conventional mindset is that the internal IT team is someone who can actually take lead on that, generally speaking. My narrative generally is to the same organizations is that the internal IT team is more like the orthopedic surgeon. They are also doctors. But the digital transformation is also a different kind of a doctor, possibly an ophthalmologist. And a transformation can come from different directions. How has your three organizations taken transformation, digital transformation, whether it is from a business process perspective or legal perspective, policy, everything, internally as an adoption or an adaptation or transformation internally? How your three entities have evolved, and maybe after this question, we'll just open it up to the floor. But my one focus I would suggest is to also keep in mind the SMEs in Pakistan, not just large organizations. So that would be, so from that perspective, how has your organization adopted to that point?
Okay, great. So a few very tangible things from an ACCA perspective. So we have moved our examinations onto a computer-based platform, but it's not just a case of the perception of multiple choice questions. We're using spreadsheet functionality in our examinations. We're using the software that in any business the qualified professional accountants would be expected to use. I think if I maybe go more onto the SME part of your question, because I think I've talked a little bit about what, as an organisation, we've done around digital transformation. For us, SMEs are a huge part of where our members work. And particularly here in Pakistan, we see our members being the key finance leads within many SME sectors or starting their own SME organisations, and the entrepreneurial spirit here in Pakistan is something that's come out again throughout the day, and the ability for the digital platforms, the digital technologies to foster and encourage that entrepreneurial mindset is fantastic. I think where we see our research, and we do quite extensive research, is looking at what changes in terms of the ethics and the trust in a digital age. And we've conducted a piece of research that actually was over 10,000 respondents globally, including a very good response rate here in Pakistan. And it recognised that particularly in SMEs, often it is the finance professional that is the individual that is governed by a professional body and has that ethical mindset around them, but also the actual regulation to ensure that they are ethically compliant. And within a digital age, our research found that ethics and trust is even more important, because when you're putting so much trust into a technology that often the leadership may not understand, and that comes back to the whole education piece, then actually you need to be sure that the people that are looking at that data that's coming out, if it's a big data perspective, actually have that governance around them. And I think that also is potentially one of the other elements about foreign direct investment around, we talked about the 4 C's earlier today. I think I have another one which is about confidence in people, and that all comes from this ethical transformation which is linked to education and digital all encompassed. So for an SME in particular, I think that's really important that they've got someone there that they can trust to interpret some of those things as well.
I mean, for us in Siemens, it was very important to understand the disruptive effect of digitalization or digitization is not the first in the recent human history. In years 1700, we had the mechanical disruptive when we had the engine, then we have the electrical when 1800, in 1900 we had the automation, and now we are going to digitization. If we see every one of these, they created enough disruption in the technology, but also in the value of the business and the business model and how you can generate money. It means if we look at what happened there, we are able to understand it. Now, having this picture in our brain, we understand is not about IT or OT. It's not, and I refer when I say IT is the IT structure. When you speak about OT, we speak about the operating systems. When we speak about a little bit the machine language, and we speak about the floor, the manufacturing floor. It's about mix of both, because again we speak about creating value. I don't need an IT expert who can create for me codes for something who doesn't understand what this code will do. I want to create a value. In sense, if I have a train, I want my train to leave on time and arrive on time. I want to know when my train will not function right. I need to know when my people in the train are not satisfied. So I use the power of IT to create a value for my system that I run it. Same if I run a power generation, same if I run a transmission line. The idea here to use the domain know-how that we could establish during the years and the history of the years, adding to it, or adding on it, the IT knowledge that we are able to code this data and create a value of it together to make them the new value of the future. And this is why we said it's IT beside OT. It's putting our IT expertise and the business knowledge or the technology we had from the past. In SMEs, I see this is a much bigger opportunity. The bigger organization is always a challenge. Why? Because although you have a lot of power, but you have a lot of bureaucracy, you have a lot of layouts, transmitting a message takes time. While in SMEs, things are much leaner. People can speak to each other. People can understand the need of a change more than in a big organization. And big organization is like almost a government affairs. People will feel secured. Why I need to change? They will doubt it. In SMEs, people will know if I don't change, I don't get paycheck tomorrow. So they will have the demand more clear. On the other side, they know when they create value or not. They see if their customer is happy or not. There's no boundaries between them. And I believe this is an opportunity for SMEs that they should not miss it. They should be close to their customer. They should be speak about what value they create and how technology is enabling their businesses.
Great. So that's IT as an enabler and then as an opportunity for SMEs.
Associated with the domain know-how.
Of course.
Isolating IT from domain know-how, creating always a gap that you have a lot of data, terabytes of data. What do you do with it? You can create a codes, but how much the codes will be right? That's again our storyline. I speak from my side of the game where I am in Siemens, and I am proud of my domain know-how experience. Maybe other companies will have another view.
Got it. Wendy, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I don't think it sits with the CIO at all. And I actually really disagree with the idea of chief digital officers for the same reason. I think it needs to permeate the whole organization, and it starts with the CEO. And the CEO really needs to understand how they can do business differently in this type of operating environment. And an SME, they have the agility to be able to do that at speed, right? Much more so than a big enterprise. And I think that understanding of what you need to change about your business model, what you need to change about the KPIs that you hold your executive team accountable to, and what you can do differently based on what your customer wants from you and understanding your customer is really where transformation comes from. And CEOs who get that and enable that across their team are driving success, and they're leveraging and utilizing data to inform what they want to do and how they understand their customer, how they change their business, as well as how they execute in a more agile way. So they use partners where they need to, they use technology where they need to, but they also really look at how they reinvent themselves. So I think that's really important, and that education, as you talked about, Lindsay, is really important, that it starts from the CEO and they don't just outsource to external parties. And we see a lot of brands outsource their relationship with their customer to agencies, and no offense, because I know a lot of brands are doing that with you right here in Pakistan. But that's like the crucial thing people should be doing, is owning their relationship with the customer. And just, spending money on Facebook and Google and thinking that equates to being digital is not the way that companies will succeed. And I think the onus is on a lot of us as big businesses to provide an alternate digital education that doesn't just come from the Googles of the world, so that people do have a holistic view of what's possible.
I fully agree. Just to add one comment here, especially for SMEs in Pakistan and everywhere, and this is where I want to say, we are speaking in Pakistan, but believe me, the same challenges is everywhere. I've been in US, I've been in Spain, in Germany, in Egypt, in Dubai. The challenge is the same. And this is an opportunity for Pakistan, because you can take this as accelerator and make it faster, because you have everything which the others will lack it. But the only advice when I think about SMEs, avoid buzzwords. Speak about value. Yeah. The big organization, the government organization, the institutions can't afford to create every 2 days a new buzzword. If you are in the frontliners like SME, you have to fight to earn your food at the end of the week, create a value, define what you want to do, speak about what you give to your customer, and that is for me the value flow of digital age. It's not about I create a 1,000 code or 200,000 code, or I create a terabyte of data, or I create a megabyte of data. That doesn't make a difference. Customer need a value, and when you give him the value, he'll pay you the money. And as long as we are able to do that, and the best guys who can live that are the SMEs.
Perfect.
So avoid buzzwords.
The ROI part.
Yeah.
It's the ROI.
And I agree that Pakistan has a huge opportunity, because one of the biggest kind of limiters in transformation is talent, and the ability for talent to leverage these tools and technologies in an effective way. And from what I've seen in this market, there's quite a bit of very talented resource here, so the opportunity is very big.
Perfect. So guys, we are open to questions in terms of digital transformation. If we don't get a question we will get a question from this side to that side. Sir, please, if you can have a mic there.
Question to Wendy, when you said
Introduce yourself.
my name is Harun Qasim, I'm from the pharmaceutical industry. My question to Wendy is when you say going on Facebook and LinkedIn is not digital, so can you elaborate more on this? What do you mean by that, and how the company, the SMEs or big corporations can go into the digital future, the digital strategy?
Sure. What I meant by that is a lot of people spend a lot of their budgets on acquiring customers by buying advertising on Facebook and LinkedIn and Google, etc. And they equate that to now I'm a digital company. And there's a lot more to executing in a digital environment than just buying media. And actually just feeding the beast, as I call it, or putting it all on black, is just the beginning of what you can do in order to build a relationship with your customer. And the more money you're investing in a walled garden, the less knowledge you have about your own customers. And there's a lot of opportunity to take that knowledge and turn it into, that's the seedlings to plant a garden and a long-term relationship. So, but a lot of people just stop there, and they just keep spending there and keep spinning their wheels in that environment. And that's just the beginning of understanding how to interact with your customers and deliver personalized messaging and offers and engagements and customer service, and proactively engage with what your customer's actually interested in by, detecting their digital body language, connecting how they're interacting with you offline, and connecting that to how they're interacting with you online, and really, delivering a kind of seamless experience across any channel, and looking to delight as opposed to disappoint.
Just to expand on this point, the issue with the digitization, we have to understand that this is one of the rare times on life where B2C get ahead of B2B. All of us has converted our private life to a cloud digitized approach, let me say 10 years ago, or starting 10 years ago. And now we are speaking about the B2B. This is totally not traditional for the human. Normally it was the other way around. It used to spend in B2B, and then you move to B2C, and this is why today when people try to speak about digital transformation in B2B business environment, they try to deploy the same behavior they did it in B2C in that, and then they consider I am digitized now. And this is what exactly I believe was a point which is not true. And again, not true doesn't make it false. It makes it not fully true. You have to consider digitization is not about only generating data or acquiring data. You have to convert this data to meaningful value that you can make money out of it. If you are a supplier or if you are a customer. Now, somebody should be saying, yes, I will pay for you for this intelligence. And this is what we have to understand, the trick sitting in the value you create by building this type of intelligence. So you convert a mass of data to smart data that you can make value and then sell it to somebody who will pay for you. And this is the difference between B2C, where you create a mass of data, and B2B, where you create a smart data with a value.
And I think just to reiterate that point, whenever I hear people talking about digital, they are thinking about their interactions externally with the customer rather than the whole business, end-to-end, what every single department can do to be a digital organisation. Again, coming from a finance perspective, we've heard the terminology about blockchain earlier, but actually that isn't just about the finance department. That's about, again, smart data that's going to inform the whole business operations if used properly, if interpreted, and that insight overlays on top of it. I mean, we did hear right at the beginning of this morning some fantastic speeches about the futures, the scenarios, where this is all potentially going. But the role of the person still within all of this technology is definitely there, and about having that aspect of actually what is the value that we are seeing from all of this massive data. How can we use that to create greater value for our customers and our organization?
Yeah, and that's it, right? Investing in employee experience is actually the new customer experience, right? Because the employees are your first line of engagement, and if you can get employee experience right, then everything else will be more seamless.
Yeah, and just to, I think, as you guys all have highlighted, I think the most important thing to answer before even, so what you just suggested is more tactical. I think we need to think from a strategy perspective as to what is this solving as a business problem, and what am I achieving in terms of my business. Either it is lowering the cost, better user experience, or my customer experience. I think we need to focus on the outcomes and then find the right tactical thing. But I think I was just discussing this earlier with all of them, and there came a term which probably was also talked about earlier probably in the day, is reverse mentoring. The challenge is most of us sitting here today are digital immigrants. And the conversation we are doing is more around digital natives. And they are our potential customers, or the next wave of our customers, or the consumers. And I think that's something where reverse mentoring part is learning the new mediums. So how do people in your organization learn about new things like these topics? Is it like going online and doing Coursera courses or edX? Or, I mean, how would you guys adopt and learn this? And I'm happy to take the next question after this. Okay, I mean, sir, I'll come to that. Please.
The business in the new age has forced, at least in my organization, we start to play totally different. So there's the what, and the what we discussed till now. What I want to achieve a value through a certain technology enablement. The how is a question like how my organization will be set up and qualified to do that. And we have, in our case, to redefine the entire customer journey and to re-include inside this customer journey my internal players, my employees, my interface, my internet interface, my customer interface to my digital channels. All that you have to consider it today, because it's not you are not doing your transactional business in the new era through the same channels like in past. So you have a different way of making interaction with your customers, which is pushing you to rethink your entire behavior, your entire setup, how you play your personas. So we do a role play, how a customer interface, and you play all that interactions about them, and you create the touch points, and you start to measure it. So it's total shift of mindset in how I see my players, who are my players, and how I enable them. Call it my player can be a human, can be a machine.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of self-education across the board, because a lot of the tools are available to play with yourself and test and learn. But I think ultimately for organizations, everything's changing, right? And I heard a story recently from Disney. They sold £200,000 worth of tickets for the first opening weekend of Star Wars. They didn't get one piece of information on any customer that bought that volume of tickets, because their traditional model is via the cinemas and via distributors. And now they're, obviously building their direct-to-customer OTT play coming, after they finish with their Netflix partnership, and they're sitting there going, how do we figure out who our customers actually are? This is Disney, right? One of the most well-known brands in the world, don't know anything really about most of their customer base. Similarly with automotive manufacturers who have traditionally gone through dealers, with FMCGs who have traditionally gone through supermarkets. Everyone's trying to figure out a different way to understand how they interact with the customers that they've always had. And so it's a lot of testing, piloting, experimentation, trialing new things, and in small bites. You don't have to take on the whole kit and caboodle from the beginning, but you do need to try, because you need to try and learn. Otherwise, you'll never change.
Can you take the last question? Okay, second last and the last one, we'll just take it. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so we can take these three questions, but I think let's do a 30-second sprint quickly. So please.
Good afternoon. My name is Farooq Zadi, S&P Global. My question is for Wendy. It's a continuation of the theme, the last question that Badar asked. What are the specific things that your organization is doing to upskill its existing talent pool from a digital skills perspective? Thank you.
We do a lot of internal training courses and sharing of intellectual property from different talent pools across the organization that have things to share. We have a lot of talent we can tap into from the US, like around things like blockchain and artificial intelligence, etc., that do learning sessions with us across a global basis. We get in external speakers to do similar things. And then we do things with our customers as well, where we talk to them and they share. We do a lot of peer-to-peer information sessions because there's no roadmap for a lot of this stuff. And we're all learning, and a lot of the time we're all making it up as we go along. So we spend a lot of time in external behind closed door sessions where we facilitate learning across our customer and prospect base, talking about how are you doing this? How are you driving this within your company? And really facilitate learning with each other, because that's the best way to learn, is the test you did, how did it perform? Or when you test it, you use the data to do this, how did it work for you? And so there's a whole bunch of different ways that we do it.
So it's more collaborative in that sense with the customers as well.
Yeah, and we do that in every country because every country is having similar challenges, different industries, right? You can learn across industries, you can learn across borders, but ultimately everyone's grappling with the same issues.
So very democratized learning in that sense.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So if we can have the second last question, and then we'll have one question from Arias.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Aslam. My question is rather an open. How and when the digitalized projections can replace the gut feeling in decision making in terms of speed, accuracy, and success?
So when can, sorry?
Digitalized projection versus the gut feeling. I mean, I'm talking about the human and machine and human decision making.
I mean, you are hitting the nail to the artificial intelligence, because the entire story about the digitization is to enable a faster, more accurate, more responsive decision-making process. And by far, the machine is faster than the human brain in acknowledging many facts and simulating future scenarios, and based on that make a decision. So how far we are there, I believe we are almost there. Example, take the anonymous cars now, which is a live topic, and we have now also a trial on anonymous plane, so a plane without a pilot. So this is by far there. They speak in the healthcare arena about a surgery without a surgeist, so it's really by robot. That's also something they can today speak about it from decision-making process. So this is by far there today. In the manufacturing side, I see it happening. I can tell you from Siemens, I have a complete offshore oil platform unmanned. So no man on offshore platform oil. So that's happening today, and that is not let me say, not something wow from the technology. It's happening. It means there's not some experiments to happen. So this is there, from my opinion.
I think, we heard earlier this morning about the different types of AI and where we're at in different sectors and at different points, and where potentially it could go to. I think there is very much, at the current time, this still very important role about individuals adding value and insight and interpretation on top of that. And I come back again to this point about ethics, and I think ethics is something that's very hard to automate and to put into a system. So, for example, when you're looking at something like the Bitcoin, how do you know whether the shadow economy is using that? So there's lots that you can automate and do. that then takes us on to a whole nother discussion, I think, about regulation of these new technologies. In a digital environment, we don't have the national boundaries that mean that the regulations are much harder to get consensus on, and how we actually then enforce and implement them. But I think areas like that, for me, reinforce the importance of the value that we bring, but the different role that we have to add as individuals to a digital world versus the current roles that we've got. And we've got to be willing to change, we've got to be quick at changing, and we've got to be open to what's coming up and continuously learn.
Perfect. Can we have the last question, please?
Yeah, hi. My name is Rehan Lake. I'm an Executive Director of Finance for OGDCL. I'm actually one of
OGDCL
those
is oil
and gas development company. Yeah, it's one of the flagship company in Pakistan. So I'm one of those Pakistanis who just returned from US. I was in Schlumberger. I was a global controller over there. And when I came back, there was 3 slogans, which is for sure automation, transformation, and positivity. So now my question to Lindsay, predominantly, if you see SME, when we are talking about the digitization and automation in corporate world, I think we all know. And in Pakistan, most of the people, they know what I have seen. I just came back after 16 years, and I'm very impressed that we have developed tremendously on the automation or IT side. Now, what is happening, what I have seen, that the decision maker, which is in the government of Pakistan, where we really need an automation, where I can see one file goes and it come back after 30 days. And I can tell you that thing can be done. If I see Schlumberger, that decision can be done in 15 minutes. Or if we really want to change, you are right that we have to change the mindset. The other thing at the same time, when we are talking about, when I'm talking, it's all documentary evidence that, we have to have a documentary evidence or the corporate governance. So what do you think, where is the corporate governance, where is the paradox which we have created between the automation, and then we are talking on the other side is we have to develop that documentary evidence and all these things. So IRS, or IFRS or ICAW, what they are doing in addressing this issue?
So let me just add to this question quickly, and maybe let's end it here. So what do you guys think of the policy and the regulatory framework and the progress there or catching up there in Pakistan and also other emerging markets? How would you rate Pakistan catching up to the new business models, the new requirements in that space? So maybe just add to this, and maybe we can just wrap it up from there.
Yeah, I'll start with IFRS. Certainly, from a financial perspective, the standard setting process is incredibly slow. Now, as a professional body, we work with IASB and we talk to them about their new standards. But from them being agreed to then actual implementation, you're talking about 3 years. Now, in a current business environment, the whole model could have absolutely revolutionised and changed, and what the standard is in place to enforce could no longer be there. They are aware of that, and certainly in the discussions we're having with IFRS, with IASB, in this region as well, they know they've got to do better. But that doesn't necessarily solve the problem. I think if we come back to what we've heard today, and I think there's some very positive messages that we heard from the governments and regulators this morning about the progress that they've made. They seem to be in a much faster speed of change in the delivery. I was incredibly impressed by the statistics we heard from the minister, that she talked about the IT progress and the education there. But often it is the regulators that are last to get there. They're behind the curve, and that's the problem. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for businesses that are having to go to the regulator and explain why these things are no longer relevant to them. And I think we are going to have to see a transformation of regulation as part of a digital transformation, but that's not going to be easy. Corporate governance, it's still incredibly important, however. So it comes back. Foreign direct investment, you need to have confidence that the organisations that you're investing in do have the rigorous systems, processes and financial reporting in place, that your investments are going to be safe. And the previous panel talked very, very well about all of that. So technology can play a role in that. And when you look at distributed ledgers and the potential that could have to almost kind of leapfrog again, the next stage, then the signs are very, very good that digital can enable better corporate governance. We just have to have the regulation lining up.
Would you guys want to take a 30-second quick?
Well, you know, I talked to you about this at lunch. I was surprised not to hear more this morning about the adoption of cloud and customer data access and here in this region. And it's not unique to Pakistan. Certainly there are other regulators in other countries that have been slow. But obviously the disruptors are here, and the disruptors are all built on cloud. They're all building businesses here. So it does seem like a little tale of two economies in that sense of what the banks and traditional legacy businesses can do versus what the disruptors find a way. And hopefully the regulators can catch up to enable all businesses to have the advantage of cloud and interaction and understanding of their customers.
I mean, without making judgment, but to give you a technical opinion, I believe making digitized process equal to making 100% transparency. And any organization / country / policymaker delaying that, for me, he is delaying the transparency process. That is how I see it, because I did it. By the way, I did it in my own business. I created what I call a digital twin of my entire process. And I know today what is missing and what we will work on it. So the only, I will not say excuse, but just to tell you this is not specific about Pakistan. It's a challenge all over the planet, because although, and if you are coming from US, you know also in US that you go to a certain departments and everything's still paper. And by the way, in industry, just not to surprise you, aerospace industry, which is one of the most sophisticated, is still paper made. Till now, if you go to aerospace manufacturing site, it should be a paper and a pencil. This is how their quality standards been set. No automation, no digitization yet. They are now speaking about it. But that's the equation, we have to solve it. There will be a value behind the topic. There will be a demand. We have to create it. We as a thought leadership, technology owners, beneficiary as a consumers, to say, guys, I can do it faster, better quality, higher efficiency. That is making difference for me. Money value will be much more. And they will be the other side. But that's all how the human nature developed from my personal view.
Thank you so much, Wendy, Assem, and Lindsay. Really appreciate it. I think it goes back to the leadership. The transformation is that's where it has to start. So thank you so much for the questions as well. I'll let the panelist hand over to the next. I'm sorry, she's already there.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a big round of applause. And we'd like to ask everyone to please remain on stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to invite to the stage the chairman of Martin Dow, Mr. Muhammad Javed Akai, to hand out the token of appreciation to our moderator and also to our speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Javed Akai is handing out a token of appreciation to our moderators and also to our speakers. And during that, would also like to invite our photographers to capture the special moment. Would like to thank our dear speakers, Mrs. Wendy Hogan, Mr. Assem Khalaili, and Mrs. Lindsay Degouve de Nuncques, and also our dear moderator, Mr. Badar Khushnood, for the very interactive. Yes, I see so many people are asking questions during this session, the very interactive discussion that was on the digital future. And next is, of course, to our dear moderator, Mr. Badar Khushnood, the partner of Bramerz and also a member managing committee of Pasha. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much, everyone. I would also like to have a group photo session first. Thank you so much, everyone.